You start high and then you work your way back. Just like how... You ready for this transition? Just like how GMBA is going to start high with Chychrun and slowly work his way back to get him traded in the offseason. As we heard in his final game interview, Chychrun kind of sounds like he might be done with the team and he's ready for a trade as well.
Do you want me to read off quotes from it, or do you want to just like summarize it?
Yes, give me just a moment to close my thoughts here.
All right.
He didn't directly insult the team or anything like that. So before anybody like tries to go after him, he didn't. He still likes the market here. He even said that he loved playing all 6 seasons here. But as you're going to hear from these quotes with Matt, it sounds like he is preparing for a trade in the offseason, and it would not surprise me. If you can, take it away.
I borderline want to start with kind of the most damning quote now that you just set me up perfectly, but I also kind of want to ease into it. But let's start off with that. Chychrun on if he'd be okay not being traded this season. This was literally every other thing. If you know anything about like corporate politics, or if you know anything about, I'm going to refer to it as being politically correct, but in the context of a professional athlete, because you can't say like Jonathan Tavares when he was talking about wanting to stay an Islander. He's not going to say, yeah, this market's trash, F these guys. Like, you don't want to be labeled locker room cancer. You just go out there, you're like, yeah, I do love it here. You focus on positives, and you be ambiguous. So when I refer to politically correct, that is what I am talking about. Right here, right there, the quotes that I'm going to read after, it's pretty much that. But if you know anything about that, you know what he's saying between the lines. This, you can't even deny. So, quote, I don't know. I'm signed for 3 more years. The trajectory of where this team is going, and a lot of stuff that is important to me. I want to be in a position where I'm getting ready to play a week from now and not packing up. There is no counter argument, right, to be like, oh, he means this. No, what he's saying, and he's not saying it in a F Arizona way. He's saying it as, I want to play in the playoffs, and this team. I genuinely, there's a lot to be excited for this team next year. I think if things click, same thing as this year, they can make a run at a wild card spot. It wouldn't be the first one, it'd be the second one, and it'd be by like 1 point. That's if things click. There's no guarantee there. I don't think he's looking at that and saying, yeah, a long shot at the worst playoff spot is where I want to be. That's not at all. And if you look at the rest of these quotes, he's like, on his future here, quote, a lot of it is out of my control. There's stuff that's going to work itself out in the summer. My mentality, my preparation isn't going to change. I want to win more than anybody. Everyone says that, but I truly believe it. I've been here my whole career and absolutely love it here. Like Richie was saying, he loves it here. He's not trashing the organization. But right here, it seems like every time we get to a point where we're going to be there, it just gets torn down again. Because we talked about it briefly last week. Even though I was excited when we got Hall, I was excited when we got Kessel, when you have the benefit of hindsight, be it with the coaching, be it with the overall roster construction, they went all in too quickly. And I have no problem admitting that. I have no problem admitting my excitement was a little wrong. I wanted success for that team so bad. And when you read that, there is no counter argument. There genuinely isn't, because it seems like every time they're getting it together, when they had their last worst start, the one they tied this season, and then Antti Ranta led that phenomenal second half, it looked like, okay, they're going to push for the playoffs. Then injury-riddled season, bad decisions here or there, kind of trying to, in my opinion, get in the way of rookies' success because, Michael Bunting and Lane Peterson, I think it was Lane Peterson that year, were stuck on the 4th line with very limited minutes, and Bunting still managed to score on that 4th line in those limited minutes. Same thing with Stromer. I think it's just kind of, you're trying to hold back rookies. I think it could have been a lot better. Not going to say cup champion, but I think they would have been better and had a better odds at playoffs those years. Every time, it looks like it gets torn down. Then this year, when they had the skeleton I was saying it going into the year, they didn't need to tear it down. They didn't need to rebuild. They could have got some free agents and made this a competitive season. The problem was the cap, and they didn't really envision that core going far. They're like, this core is probably a second-round exit at max. And they're like, you know what? Let's tear it down, get a new vision in. And I completely understand why Jakob Chychrun would be opposed to that. Because he has given his heart and soul. Like, yeah,
Yep.
there are the concerns, and I brought it up. Everyone that actually watches like my videos or knows, like, listens to what I say. I've never hated Chychrun. I've criticized him for a couple of small things, and he has injury issues, but it's never been about Chychrun's a bad player. He's bad for the team. I've been referring to him as the captain for the last 2 or 3 years because I genuinely feel he could lead this team. But
Yep.
if he's at the point where he wants to compete now, and we are still realistically 2 to 3 years away from that, I have no problem with him wanting out. I just wish he wouldn't have said it because now his value is going to go down even more than it because of the disappointing season when he got it together, getting re-injured, so he's injured twice. His maximum games played, I think, I said 63. I had it in front of me last time.
Yeah, I think it was the shortened season. His peak season where he had, honestly, a season that was worth at least a consideration for the Norris. Not obviously, he shouldn't have walked away with it, but at least get some consideration for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was that season that he remained healthy, and it was a shortened season due to pre-existing lockdown things.
So if you consider that, it's like, yeah, I've pointed those out because we have a history of idolizing mediocrity in this market. It's okay. We can admit it. We understand this, but Chychrun's not mediocre. He just has injury issues, and I think a breakup is mutually beneficial. I wish they would have done it in the offseason. Like I said, allegedly, if Lundell was ever on the table, I think that should have been a no-brainer, which also tells me he probably never was because that would have been a no-brainer.
You mean the deadline, right?
Well, I was talking about going into the season because I thought he would have had more value in the...
Okay,
yeah.
gotcha. Yeah. I was confused here because we're going into the offseason now, so the previous offseason.
But I think at the draft it happens, and I think he went from 2 first and probably a top prospect and a good prospect to a first and maybe a top prospect. It depends on who you're trading with, if you can generate some demand, because now that he's put this out, his value's down now. But give it another couple of months, that could start a little bidding war behind the scenes, and that could start some good conversation and get it back up. But as of right now, I see a first and a good prospect. It could be as high as a first, a good prospect, and maybe even a top prospect when we hit draft day. It really depends on if there is that bidding war or not.